Well, aid programs worldwide have been thrown into doubt by a 90-day funding freeze also announced by US President Donald Trump. The measure puts on hold virtually all US foreign assistance while the administration reviews programs already in place. Officials have since announced several exemptions, including emergency food aid and HIV treatment, which support tens of millions of people outside the United States. I'd like to welcome Andrew S. Natsios now. He is the director of the Scowcroft Institute of International Affairs and previously served as the administrator of the US Agency for International Development. Welcome to you, sir. Could you begin by telling our viewers which countries are particularly hardest hit by this freeze?
Well, there are 80 USAID missions in the world. Perhaps half of them are in the Middle East and Africa. There are a number in Latin America, Southeast Asia. They will be affected most directly because the programs are largest there. Then there are another 20 or 30 countries where there are smaller aid programs, but no AID mission. An AID mission is an office there with a mission director and a staff to manage things. Okay. And so they will be affected.
In which ways? What are the impacts that you potentially see on some of these countries?
Well, for example, I know Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, who I have great respect for. I was a supporter of his when he ran for president, so 8 years ago. So, and he was, I might add, a big supporter of foreign aid, so this must be painful for him. This is not being directed by the State Department. It's being directed by OMB in the White House, from what I understand. So the programs that would be very directly affected, for example, we have a polio eradication program, which we work with international organizations, with UNICEF, with the NGO community, with ministries of health, to completely eradicate polio from the world, which we successfully did with smallpox, which had killed 300 million people, smallpox had. It doesn't exist anymore. We eradicated. It is in the interest of the American people for us to wipe out polio. We had polio epidemics in the 1950s, and there are still people in wheelchairs because of it. Many people died because of it. Mitch McConnell, one of our most powerful senators, had polio as a child, so he's particularly sensitive to these issues. Those programs will have to shut down. We're on the edge of eliminating polio. Marco Rubio did sign an exemption, as I understand it, for the PEPFAR program, which is President Bush's effort to stop the AIDS pandemic, which is good. I'm glad he did that, because if people don't take their antiretrovirals, they'll die. There's no cure for AIDS at this point. So, but I understood today that the FUSE program, the Famine Early Warning System, which was set up after the Ethiopian famine of 1985, is shut down. That's the way in which we determine where famines are about to happen. They can predict famines ahead of time. They use aerial photography. They send teams into the ground, into the areas of drought, and that's how they direct the food aid. It's like having a car and not having a steering wheel. The OMB, the White House, exempted food aid, but they took away the steering wheel. 90% of the people who die in famines actually die of disease before they die of starvation, because their immune system is compromised. So the public health programs are as important, if not even though more important in some ways, than the actual food itself, because people die from the disease first. So the public health programs in emergencies are extremely important to prevent mass loss of life. Famine is developing in Sudan right now. By the end of this year, there may be as many as 4 million Sudanese dead, and we're very worried about it. I think that is one of the most serious crises facing the humanitarian community. And the United States is the leading humanitarian power in terms of emergency assistance.
That's right. And the US, as you say, does provide more foreign aid globally than any other country. I just want to ask you finally, a cable sent to US embassies says standards for foreign assistance will need to be, quote, aligned with President Trump's foreign policy agenda. What do you think these standards could look like?
Well, I've seen some things circulating, and actually they're very thoughtful. Now, I can't tell who wrote them, but some of it is traditional aid programs that have been altered slightly to take out things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, which the Trump administration wants to get rid of. We didn't have those programs when I was administrator, and I think they're very divisive in the United States. I'm not sure they're necessary for AID, and if AID has to get rid of them, it's not going to compromise the agency. So, but shutting down all the programs because there might be a DIA provision somewhere in it doesn't make sense. Just send a cable out to the mission saying if there's a DEI element to the program, stop it. That would be a much better way of approaching this, it seems to me.
That was Andrew S. Natsios, Director of the Scowcroft Institute for International Affairs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.